The Knight's Tale. Part 3. I judge it would be held for negligence if I forgot to tell of the dispense of money by the Duke who set about to make the lists a royal show throughout, a theatre more noble in its plan, I dare well say was never seen by man. It had a circuit of a mile about, well walled with stone. There was a ditch without, shaped like a circle. There it stood complete, in tier on tier, the height of 60 feet, so that a man set in a given row did not obstruct his neighbor from below. Eastward there stood a gate of marble white, and westward such another rose to sight. Briefly, there never was upon the face of earth so much within so small a space. No craftsman in the land that had the trick of pure geometry, arithmetic, portraiture, carving and erecting stages. But Theseus found him and supplied his wages to build this theatre and carve devices, and to observe due rites and sacrifices. Eastward he built upon the gate, above, an oratory to the Queen of Love, to Venus and her worship, and he dressed an altar there, and like it to the west. In reverence to Mars, he built a second. The cost in gold was hardly to be reckoned. Yet northward, in a turret on the wall, he built a third, an oratory tall, and rich, of whitest alabaster set, with crimson coral, to discharge the debt of worship to Diana of chastity. And it was thus that Theseus built these 3 temples in great magnificence of style. But yet I have forgotten all this while to tell you of the portraits that there were, the shapes, the carvings, and the figures there, to grace these temples high above the green. First, in the temple of Venus you had seen, wrought on the wall, and piteous to behold, the broken sleeps and sighings manifold, the sacred tears and the lamenting songs, and every fiery passion that belongs to those that suffer love, the long endured, their taken oaths, their covenants assured, pleasure and hope, desire, foolhardiness, beauty and youth, lasciviousness, largesse, philters and force, falsehood and flattery, extravagance, intrigue and jealousy, gold garlanded with many a yellow twist, that had a cuckoo sitting on her wrist, stringed instruments, and carols, feasts and dances, joy and display, and all the circumstances of love, as I have told you and shall tell, were in due order painted there as well, and more than I can mention or recount. Truly the whole of Cytherea's mount, where Venus has her dwelling above all, her other playgrounds figured on the wall, with all her garden in its joyful dress. Nor was forgot her porter, idleness, nor yet Narcissus, beauty's paragon, in times gone by, nor doting Solomon, nor the unmastered strength of Hercules, Medea and her enchantments next to these, and Circe, too, and Turnus fierce and brave, and rich King Croesus, captive and a slave, that men might see that neither wit nor wealth, beauty or cunning, bravery or health, can challenge Venus or advance their worth against that goddess who controls the earth. And all these people captured in her noose cried out, alas, but it was little use. Suffice these few examples, but the score could well be reckoned many thousands more. Her statue, glorious in majesty, stood naked, floating on a vasty sea, and from the navel down there were a mass of green and glittering waves as bright as glass. In her right hand a cithern carried she, and on her head, most beautiful to see, a garland of fresh roses, while above their circles round her many a flickering dove. Cupid her son was standing to behold her, fronting her statue, winged on either shoulder, and he was blind, as it is often seen. He bore a bow with arrows bright and keen. Why should I not go on to tell you all the portraiture depicted on the wall within the temple of mighty Mars the Red? The walls were painted round and overhead, like the recesses of that grisly place, known as the Temple of Great Mars in Thrace, that frosty region under chilling stars, where stands the sovereign mansion of King Mars. First on the walls a forest with no plan, inhabited by neither beast nor man, was painted, tree trunks knotted, gnarled, and old, jagged and barren, hideous to behold, through which there ran a rumble and a soughing, as though a storm should break the branches bowing. Before it, downwards from a hill there went a slope, the temple of Armipotent. Mars was erected there in steel and burnished, the gateway, narrow and forbidding, furnished. A ghastly sight, and such a rushing quake raged from within, the portals seemed to shake, and at the doors a northern glimmer shone. Onto the walls, for windows there were none. One scarce discerned a light, it was so scant. The doors were of eternal adamant, and vertically clenched, and clenched across, for greater strength with many an iron boss, and every pillar to support the shrine weighed a full ton of iron bright and fine. And there I saw the dark imaginings of felony, the stratagems of kings, and cruel wrath that glowed in ember red, the pick purse and the image of pale dread, the smiler with the knife beneath his cloak, the outhouses that burnt with blackened smoke. Treason was there, a murder on a bed, and open war, with wounds that gaped and bled. Dispute, with bloody knife and snarling threat. A screaming made the place more dreadful yet. The slayer of himself, I saw him there, with all his heart's blood matted in his hair. The driven nail that made the forehead crack. Cold death, with gaping mouth upon its back. And in the middle of the shrine mischance stood comfortless with sorry countenance. There I saw madness cackling his distress. Armed insurrection, outcry fierce excess. The carrion in the undergrowth, slit-throated, and thousands violently slain, I noted. The rapping tyrant with his prey o'ertaken. The leveled city, gutted and forsaken. The ships on fire dancingly entangled. The luckless hunter that wild bears had strangled. The sow, munching the baby in the cradle. The scalded cook, in spite of his long ladle. Nothing forgotten of the unhappy art of Mars, the carter crushed beneath his cart, flung to the earth and pinned beneath the wheel. Those also on whom Mars has set his seal. The barber and the butcher and the smith, who forges things a man may murder with. And high above, depicted in a tower, sat Conquest, robed in majesty and power, under a sword that swung above his head, sharp-edged and hanging by a subtle thread. And Caesar's slaughter stood in effigy, and that of Nero and Mark Antony, though to be sure they were as yet unborn. Their deaths were there prefigured to adorn this temple with the menaces of Mars, as is depicted also in the stars. Who shall be murdered? Who shall die for love? Such were the portraits on the walls above. Let these examples from the past hold good. For all I cannot reckon, though I would. The statue of Mars was in a cart, and clad in armor, grim and starring like the mad. Above his head, there shone with blazing looks two starry figures, named in ancient books. Pula one, the other Rubius. The god of battles was encompassed thus. There stood a wolf before him at his feet. His eyes glowed red, he had a man to eat. Subtle the pencil was that told this story, picturing Mars in terror and in glory. To the temple of Diana, now the chaste, I briefly turn, for I will use what haste I can in trying to describe it all. Here there were many paintings on the wall, of hunting and of shamefast chastity. There I perceived the sad Callisto, she, whom in her rage Diana did not spare, but changed her from a woman to a bear, then to a star, and she was painted so. She is the lodestar, that is all I know. Her son, too, is a star, as one can see. There I saw Dana, turned into a tree. No, not Diana, she was not the same. But Peneus' daughter, Dana was her name. I saw Actaeon turned into a stag. This was Diana's vengeance, lest he brag of having seen her naked. There they show him, caught and devoured. His own hounds did not know him. Close by, there was a painting furthermore, of Atalanta hunting a wild boar. And Meleager, there were others too. Diana chose to harry and undo, and many other wonders on the wall were painted that I need not now recall. High on a stag, the goddess held her seat, and there were little hounds about her feet. Below her feet there was a sickle moon, waxing it seemed, but would be waning soon. Her statue bore a mantle of bright green, her hand a bow with arrows cased and keen. Her eyes were lowered, gazing as she rode, down to where Pluto has his dark abode. A woman in her travail lay before her, her child unborn. She ceased not to implore her to be delivered, and with piteous call cried, "Help, Lucina, thou the best of all." It was a lively painting, every shade had cost the painter many a florin paid. So now the list were made, and Theseus, who at huge cost had bidden them produce these temples in a theater so stately, saw it was finished, and it pleased him greatly. No more of Theseus now, I must pass on to speak of Arcite and of Palamon. The day approached for trial of their rights, when each should bring with him 100 knights, to settle all by battle, as I said. So back to Athens each of them had led his 100 knights, all helmeted and spurred, and armed for war. They meant to keep their word. And it was said indeed by many that never since the day the world began, in all God's earth, wide seas and reach of land, had so few men made such a noble band, as in respect of knighthood and degree, everyone with a taste for chivalry, and keen, you bet, to win a glorious name, had begged to be allowed to join the game. Lucky the man to whom they gave the word. And if tomorrow such a thing occurred, you know quite well that every lusty knight, who loved the ladies and had strength to fight, whether in England here or anywhere, would wish, you cannot doubt it, to be there. Fight for a lady, benedicity. That would be something for a man to see. And that was just the case with Palamon. With him there rode his comrades, many a one. Some were in coat of mail, and others wore a breastplate and a tunic, little more. Some carried heavy plating, front and back, and some a Prussian shield to ward attack. Some cased their legs in armor, thigh to heel. Some bore an axe, and some a mace of steel. There's never a new fashion, but it's old. And so they armed themselves as I have told, each man according to his own opinion. You might have seen arrive from his dominion, mighty Lycurgus, famous king of Thrace. Black was his beard, and manly was his face, to see the circling eyeballs of the fellow, set in his head, and glowing red and yellow. And like a griffon he would stare and rouse the shaggy hair upon his beetling brows. Huge were his limbs, his muscles hard and strong. His back was broad, his bulging arms were long. True to his country's custom from of old, he towered in a chariot of gold, and 4 white bulls were harnessed in the traces. Over his armor, which in many places was studded with bright nails of yellow gold, he wore a coal-black bearskin, fold on fold, instead of surcoat, and behind his back his fell of hair was combed and shone as black as raven's feather, and a golden wreath, thick as your arm, weighted the head beneath. It was immensely heavy and was bright, with many precious stones of fiery light, with finest rubies and with diamonds. About his chariot, white enormous hounds, 20 and more, each larger than a steer, and trained to hunt the lion and the deer, went following him. Their muzzles were fast bound. Their collars were of gold with rings set round. He had 100 nobles in his rout, armed to the teeth. Their hearts were stern and stout. And with Arcite, so the poets sing, went great Emetreus, the Indian, on a bay steed whose trappings were of steel, covered in cloth of gold from haunch to heel, fretted with diaper, like Mars to see. His surcoat was in cloth of Tartary, studded with great white pearls, beneath its fold, a saddle of new beaten, burnished gold. He had a mantle hanging from his shoulders, which, crammed with rubies, dazzled all beholders. His hair was crisped in ringlets, as if spun of yellow gold, and glittered like the sun. Aquiline nose and eyes with lemon light, and rounded lips he had, his color bright, with a few freckles sprinkled here and there. Some yellow and some black, he bore an air, as of a lion when he cast a glance. He was some 25 years old, to chance. A guess at it, a healthy beard was springing. His voice resounded like a trumpet ringing. He had a wreath of laurel on his head, for he was freshly, greenly garlanded, and on his hand he bore for his delight an eagle, it was tame and lily-white. He had 100 lords beside him there, in all their armor, though their heads were bare, and sumptuously decked with furnishings. For take my word for it that dukes and kings were gathered in this noble company, for love and for the spread of chivalry. Many a lion tame and spotted pard gambolled about this king of stern regard, and in this manner in their fine adorning, these lords came to the city on Sunday morning, round about 9 o'clock, and lighted down. The noble Theseus led them through his town, so it became him as a duke and knight, and housed them each according to his right. He feasted them and took great pains to please, to honor and to set them all at ease. And to this day it said no human wit, however lofty, could have bettered it. What minstrelsy, what service at the feast, what gifts bestowed on greatest as on least, how richly decked the palace, what the place ordained for first and last upon the dais, what ladies loveliest in the dancing throng, and which most exquisite in dance and song, and which to speak most feelingly of love, or what the falcons that were perched above, and what the hounds that couched upon the floor. Of all such questions I shall say no more. Then the result of it, I will not tease you. Here comes the point, so listen if it please you. That Sunday night ere day began to spring, there was a lark which Palamon heard sing, although 2 hours before the day came on. Yet the lark sang, and so did Palamon, with holy heart and in a lofty mood. He rose on pilgrimage, and he pursued his path to Cytherea, the benign and blissful Venus, to her honored shrine. And in her hour, among the early mists, he stepped towards her temple in the lists, and down he knelt in humbleness and fear, with aching heart, and said as you shall hear: Fairest of fair, O Venus, lady mine, consort of Vulcan, daughter of Jove divine, giver of joy upon the heights above, the mount of Cytherea, by that love thou gavest to Adonis, heal my smart, and take my humble prayer into thy heart. Alas, I have no language that can tell the ravages and torments of my hell, which heart is all unable to convey, and I am so confused I cannot say more than, O lady bright that art aware of all my thought and ceased my despair. Consider this, have pity on my pain, as I shall ever struggle to maintain thy service, in so far as it shall be within my power to combat chastity. This is my vow, if only thou wilt help. I am not one of those who brag and yelp of victory, nor ask for it tomorrow, or for renown, I neither beg nor borrow vainglorious praise, nor do I make profession of prowess, but would fully have possession of Emelye, and die thy worshipper. Choose thou the means for this, administer the ways, I care not how, whether it be by my defeat of them, or theirs of me, so that I have my lady in my arms. Though Mars be god of battles and alarms, thy power is so great in heaven, that if thou please, I well may have my love, and I will worship at thy shrine forever. Ride where I may, to thee my whole endeavor shall be in sacrifice and kindling fires upon thy altars. Yet if my desires, sweet lady, cannot please thee and my sorrow, with death upon Arcite's spear tomorrow, I shall not care when I have lost my life, though he should win my Emelye to wife. This is the sum and purpose of my prayer. Give me my love, sweet goddess ever fair. When Palamon had done his orison, he then did sacrifice with woebegone devotion and with ceremonial rite, more than I now have leisure to recite. And in the end, the statue of Venus shook, and made a sign, and by that sign he took. His prayer had been accepted on that day, for though the sign had hinted a delay, he knew for certain that his boon was granted, and home he went at once, his soul enchanted. In the 3rd hour after Palamon had sought out Venus for his orison, up rose the sun, and up rose Emelye, and hastened to Diana's sanctuary, taking such maidens as she might require, and they were ready furnished with the fire, the incense and the vestments, and a throng of other necessaries that belong to sacrifices, horns of brimming mead. As was the custom, all that they could need. The temple smoked, and the adornments there glittered in beauty. Emelye the fair joyfully washed her body in a well, but how she did her right I dare not tell, save in a general way, though I for one think that to hear the detail would be fun. If one means well, why bother to feel queasy? It's good for people to be free and easy. Her shining hair untressed upon her cloak, they combed and set a crown of cereal oak, green on her golden head with fitting grace. 2 fires she kindled in the proper place, and did her rites, as he will find who looks in Statius, Book of Thebes, and other books. And when the fires were kindled, she drew near with piteous heart, and prayed as you shall hear. O goddess, chaste of all the woodlands green, that seest earth and heaven and sea, O queen of Pluto's kingdom, dark and deep below, goddess of virgins that from long ago hast known my heart, and knowest my desire, as I may shun the vengeance of thine ire, such as upon Actaeon once was spent. Thou knowest well, O chaste omnipotent, that I would be a virgin all my life, and would be neither mistress, no, nor wife. I am, thou knowest, of thy company, a huntress, still in my virginity, and only ask to walk the woodlands wild, and not to be a wife or be with child, nor would I know the company of man. O help me, goddess, for none other can, by the 3 forms that ever dwell in thee asterisk. And as for Palamon who longs for me, and for Arcite's passion, I implore this favor of thy grace, and nothing more. Set them in amity, and let them be at peace, and turn their hearts away from me. Let all their violent loves and hot desires, their ceaseless torments and consuming fires, be quenched or turned towards another place. Yet if thou wilt not do me so much grace, or if my destiny ordains it so, that one shall have me whether I will or no, then send me him that shall desire me most. Clean goddess of the chaste and virgin host, look down upon the bitter tears that fall upon my cheeks, O keeper of us all. Keep thou my maidhood, prosper my endeavor, and while I live a maid, I'll serve thee ever. The fires flamed up upon the altar fair and clear while Emelye was thus in prayer. But all at once she saw a curious sight, for suddenly one fire quenched its light, and then rekindled, as she gazed in doubt. The other fire as suddenly went right out. As it was quenched, it made a whistling sound, as of wet branches burning on the ground. Then from the faggot's tip there ran a flood of many drops that had the look of blood. Now at the sight she was so terrified, it almost drove her from her wits. She cried, not knowing what it was to signify, for it was fear alone that made her cry. She wept, and it was pitiful to hear. And then began Diana to appear, with bow in hand, garbed as a huntress, and said, my daughter, cease your heaviness. For thee the gods on high have set their term, and by eternal word and writ confirm, that thou shalt be espoused to one of those that have for thee endured so many woes. But unto which of them I may not tell. Longer I cannot tarry, fare thee well. And yet the fires of sacrifice that glow upon my altar shall, before thou go, make plain thy destiny in this forever. And on the word, the arrows in her quiver clattered together and began to ring. And forth she went and made a vanishing, wholly amazed at what had come to pass. Emelye thought, what can this mean? Alas! Oh, take me under thy protection, Diana, for I yield to thy direction. Then she went homeward by the shortest way. And that was all, there is no more to say. Now in the hour of Mars, next after this, Arcite rose up and sought the edifice of fiery Mars to do beneath his banner his sacrifice, as was the pagan manner, in high devotion with a piteous heart. And thus he set his orison apart. O thou strong god of war that art adored in the cold realms of Thrace, and held for lord, that hast of every monarchy and land, of warlike men the bridle in thine hand, and dealest them their fortunes by thy choice. Accept my sacrifice, and hear my voice, and if my youth be such as to deserve thy favor, if my strength be fit to serve thy godhead, if I may be one of thine, I pray thee then, pity this pain of mine, by that same suffering and burning fire that long ago consumed thee with desire, having in use the incomparable flesh of fair free-hearted Venus, young and fresh, holding her in thine arms and at thy will, albeit that once the time was chosen ill, seeing that Vulcan caught thee in his net, and found thee lying with his wife, but yet, by all the pain and passion of thy heart, pity me too that suffer the same smart. Thou knowest I am ignorant and young, and as I think, more passionately stung by love than any creature dead or living. Little she thinks, in all the grief she's giving, of me, or cares whether I swim or sink. And well I know ere she can learn to think kindly of me, that force must have its place. And well I know without thy help or grace, the little strength I have is all too slight. Then help me, Lord, tomorrow in the fight, not only for the flames that burnt in thee, but for the fire that now is burning me. Grant victory tomorrow to my sword. Mine be the labor, thine the glory, Lord. Thy sovereign temple I will honor above all other places. It shall be my love to work for thy delight, to use thy arts, and hang my banner, yea, my heart of hearts, above thy altar. All my company shall do the same forever. There shall be eternal fires burning before thy shrine. Nay, further to this binding vow of mine, my beard and hair, whose length and excellence has never suffered yet from the offense of razor or of shear, to thee I give, and I'll be thy true servant while I live. Now, Lord, have pity on a heart so sore, and give me victory, I ask no more. His prayer was over, and the rings that hung upon the portals of the temple swung. So did the doors, and clattered far and near, at which Arcite felt the touch of fear. The fires blazed, the altar glistened bright, so that the temple was suffused with light. A scented air rose upward from the ground. Arcite lifted up his hand and found more incense, and he cast it on the flame. With other rituals, at last the frame of mighty Mars began to shake and ring its hauberk, and he heard a murmuring, low-voiced and dim, that answered victory. And giving thanks and glorifying he, filled with the joyful hope that he would win, returned at once and went to seek his inn, as happy as a bird is of the sun. Immediately an uproar was begun over this granted boon in heaven, as between Venus, fairest queen of love, and the armipotent Mars. It did not cease, though Jupiter was busy making peace, until their father Saturn, pale and cold, who knew so many stratagems of old, searched his experience and found an art to please the disputants on either part. Age has a great advantage over youth, in wisdom and by custom, that's the truth. The old may be outrun, but not out-reasoned, and Saturn stopped their argument and seasoned their fears, although it's not his nature to, and found a remedy for this to do. My dearest daughter Venus, said old Saturn, my heavenly orbit marks so wide a pattern. It has more power than anyone can know. In the wan sea I drown and overthrow. Mine is the prisoner in the darkling pit. Mine are both neck and noose that strangles it. Mine the rebellion of the surfs astir, the murmurings, the privy poisoner. And I do vengeance, I send punishment, and when I am in Leo it is sent. Mine is the ruin of the lofty hall, the falling down of tower and of wall. On carpenter and mason, I their killer. 'Twas I slew Samson when he shook the pillar. Mine are the maladies that kill with cold, the dark deceits, the stratagems of old. A look from me will father pestilence. Then weep no more, for by my diligence, this Palamon, your dedicated knight, shall have his lady, as you swore he might. Though Mars should help his champion, none the less, peace must be made between you soon, I guess, although you do not share the same complexions. That is what brings these daily insurrections. I am your grandfather, and as before, I'll do my best to please you, weep no more. Now I shall cease to speak of gods above, of angry Mars and Venus queen of love, and tell you all, as plainly as I can, the grand result for which I first began.